ancient Romans. But that is just the surface level stuff.
Wait, hang on. So there were women's public baths.
There were women's public baths. Yes. I didn't mention that. Yes. There were public baths for men and women, and they were very, and there were probably bathrooms in the public baths, but I don't know for sure. I would assume.
So like you were allowed to go out in public if you were going to take a public bath.
Yeah, well, women did go out in public. I mean, I think that it's like, this ideal that women were supposed to like operate behind the scenes and be the keepers of the hearth and stuff, and like men were supposed to do all the business and do all the war and do all the things outside, but like in reality, that's not necessarily how it went.
Right. Okay. Fair.
Yeah. So Elagabalus, what I think is really great about Elagabalus is he is a person that we might call transgender today. Might be using the wrong pronouns. I feel weird because we did a whole episode where I used he, him pronouns for Elagabalus, but looking back, I'm like, I should have at least used they pronouns. So, Elagabalus, at one point married a man who was a slave and a chariot driver and referred to himself as, the wife of this man.
Wow. Scandalous.
Scandal. I know. He or she possibly created a brothel in the palace. Now, they all did this. All of the emperors who people wanted to castigate, and some empresses too, made the palace into a brothel.
Is this according to, like, tabloids?
Yes, it is. Quote, I think this is from Cassius Dio. He set aside a room in the palace, and there committed his indecencies.
Oh.
Always...
Sexy.
So, I know, always standing nude at the door of the room, as the harlots do, and shaking the curtain which hung from gold rings, while in a soft and melting voice he solicited the passers-by. Very, very feminine. Effeminate.
It is difficult, though, because it's really hard to, like, try and use language from today to describe people who lived in a time where they don't have that type of language to describe themselves. And so you don't really know how they would prefer to be described.
Right.
Yeah, it's a struggle. I mean, the one clue that makes me think maybe we misgendered him, her, is this one from Dio. I'm going to give you a quote. Quote, he carried his lewdness to such a point that he asked the physicians to contrive a woman's vagina in his body by means of an incision, promising them large sums for doing so.
Wow, okay. Yeah, that sounds likely, like, as if this person were alive today, they would identify probably as a trans person.
But we can't say.
Yeah, it sounds like gender, affirmation surgery, right?
Yeah. Or it could have just been gossip. And that's the other thing, is that these writers would frequently say things like this about emperors that they really wanted to demonize. So none of this might be true. We don't know. It might all just be, this writer with an axe to grind criticizing this. Because the worst thing that they could say about a cisgender man, a man that they would consider, in ancient Rome, is that that person was effeminate. So you could just see the writers, like, building on this gossip. Yeah. Interesting, though. Very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So Elagabalus was Syrian, Eastern to the ancient Romans, and a lot of people criticized him for following a foreign Eastern religion and having all these, habits that really pushed Roman buttons about gender. Yeah, he did not, apparently, what really comes off the page about him is that he just refused to follow the gender norms. And some of that has to do with ancient Roman prejudices about Easterners. Easterners were supposed, like Persians, for example, were supposedly effeminate too. Yeah. So it's all kind of tied into xenophobia here.
Yeah, I was getting that feeling. Like, and then, like, whatever Elagabalus did, they were like, oh, well, everyone from Syria is like that.
Right. It's wearing silk and eyeliner and using the bathroom, and
looking fabulous all the time. Ugh.
Oh, God. Elagabalus looked fabulous all the time. Like, that is definitely a thing.
Okay, that's how I'm picturing it anyway.
Oh, yeah. Nero, the Emperor Nero, also said to be bisexual. He quote the stuff from Sertorius, the 12 Caesars is really very lurid about Nero. Quote, abusing freeborn boys and seducing married women. There's a rumor that he castrated somebody and quote unquote tried to make a woman of him, according to the sources, and then married that person.
Oh boy.
Made them wear a women's clothing during the marriage and treated him as a wife. This seems to be non-consensual. I don't know.
Yeah, like, on the one hand, you know, you do you, but on the other hand, like, just performing surgery on people is generally, like, don't do that. That's, especially if you are not a surgeon, let's just stay away from that.
Right, well, that was a thing that happened in ancient Rome as well, like, people getting castrated as children and things like that.
Yeah. Worldwide, I mean.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It comes up a little bit in stuff that we've read about religions that were supposedly Eastern, but we're also reading these from ancient, Roman sources, so it's a little bit hard to tell, what is lurid rumor and what is true.
Which is so weird, because they were clearly doing, like, this stuff as well, and then they were like, let's spread rumors that those guys are doing this terrible thing while they were at the same time doing it.
Oh yeah, and let's use this as an excuse to colonize them.
Yeah,
we also do it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
that was not uncommon.
Absolutely, but we do it in a way that we're comfortable with. So
right. We're Romans. We don't really do it that way. So Nero, he also supposedly married another man and referred to himself as the wife of this man. I'm not sure if they're married at the same time. Like, there's all these weird things about whom Nero married, and it's a little bit hard to parse. But Nero seems to have been queer in some way.
Yeah, when we were doing our political sex scandals episode, we talked a little bit about Nero. But, like, when I was doing research, that's what totally kept coming up over and over again was... all of the people that Nero liked to fuck.
Yeah. Everyone, really.
Everybody.
Sometimes he was the husband, sometimes he was the wife.
Huh.
Or
well,
she.
I guess it's important to know. That's the whole thing. Like, they need to know who's bottoming in every possible position, so...
Right, and I think that's what that means. Like, the way that it's put in the sources is he was the wife of this person, but the husband of this other person. And it just occurred to me as you said it, like, I think they're making a statement about who was bottom and who was top in each of those relationships. And they never switched it up. They always did it this one way.
Every time.
I know.
Although Nero was clearly a switch, if we're...
Oh, yeah. Nero was, like, freaky. Probably did stuff that, like, I probably haven't even heard of.
Probably
teach us all something.
I feel like Nero had a lot more free time on his hands than any of us do.
Right. Yeah. Caligula also has some scandalous things, and I feel like Caligula, he might be the first of the emperors that had this kind of demonizing treatment. I mean, definitely there were scandalous rumors about Tiberius who came before him. But Caligula specifically, like, gets the sort of, well, he's effeminate kind of treatment. Like,
okay. Wait, was Tiberius the one with the, like, horrible, like, child sex island?
The
I think I remember this from an episode. So, yes. Like, I guess I should let you explain that a little bit.
So,
for people who haven't heard it.
This is extremely dark. It's going to deal with pedophilia. So the lurid rumor around Tiberius was that he had this retreat in Capri where he would make aristocratic families send their children for him to have sex with in various ways.
And this was when he was emperor, right?
Yes. He kind of just sort of abdicated early, didn't like being emperor. He just sort of checked out and... let this guy, what's his name, Sejanus, his captain of, like, his Praetorian prefect, handle things, and that became a whole separate thing. But while he was there, according to the rumors, he had like all these children sent to him to have sex with. Yeah.
So he was like, okay, I'm quitting my job and pursuing my true passion, which is being a horrible, evil miscreant.
Yeah.
But there weren't like lurid rumors about him.
Well, those were the lurid rumors, and Tiberius was Caligula's uncle. So there is a school of thought about Caligula, experiencing this abuse. He lived with Tiberius for a time. He was like his ward because his father had died, and then his mom had died because she was exiled, and he was living with Tiberius. And
that must have been a horror show.
Yeah, at the Neverland Ranch. So he must have seen some shit. Is kind of what that's what the historians postulate. Yeah. So
God,
Caligula.
That is very dark.
Yeah, his thing was he supposedly slept with his sisters and most of his male friends and acquaintances. He was supposed to, the word that comes up around Caligula when I read about him is catamites, which is a specific word for men who bottom in gay sex. Yeah, he supposedly had a lot of sex partners who were the bottom, because they have to point that out. That's all.
Yeah, it's very important, apparently.
But that did not mean that Caligula was not effeminate, because here's a quote from Suetonius, quote, "In his clothing, his shoes, and the rest of his attire, he did not follow the usage of his country and his fellow citizens, not always even that of his sex, or, in fact, that of an ordinary mortal. He often appeared in public in embroidered cloaks covered with precious stones, with a long-sleeved tunic and bracelets, sometimes in silk, and in a woman's robe. And in a woman's robe."
As an ordinary mortal. Interesting words.
Yeah.
Interesting words directly followed by a description of Elton John's attire.
Right. Yes.
Very good point.
Yeah.
I hope Caligula had some of those amazing sunglasses.
If there were sunglasses back then, he'd have sunglasses.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah. Good point.
For sure. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. The ancient Romans.
So, like, it's wild to me that you can have a culture that's so built on these rigid gender norms and like rules about how you're supposed to perform your gender, but then you can have like a succession of people at the very top, like so much more the top of society than we even have in the US, like actual emperor who are just like, fuck it, I'm not doing any of that.
Well, I mean, the more money and power you have, the more sex you can have, and the more open you can be about it, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious, though, like, how many of these people lived, like, long, full, happy lives, and how many were, like, deposed and had horrible things done to them?
Well, many were deposed and had horrible things done to them. Some of them did live long, happy lives. I would say it wasn't the majority. I haven't done a study on that, but it's actually funny. Like, our early episodes, we did a two-parter on child emperors, and then we did a two-parter on the Praetorian Guard. And it was like kind of this long, what it turned into was sort of a bird's eye view look at the entire history of the Roman Empire and horrible things that happened to emperors.
Right, like, I mean, they say that Nero is the one who played the fiddle while Rome burned, right?
Yeah, it's not true.
But bad things happened at the end of his reign, correct?
Oh boy, did they ever. His death was really creepy and haunting, and we tell that story in one of our episodes. I forget. It's really long, but it's very creepy and haunting. Yeah.
And like, how did the end of Caligula's reign go?
Well, Caligula got stabbed to death in a hallway.
That's right. Okay, I had a feeling it wasn't a good one, but I couldn't remember what it was.
It was because he's a member of his Praetorian Guard, a very manly man who had served with his father in Germany. He used to make fun of this guy for being effeminate all the time, and like, I guess he had a high-pitched voice, and he used to always make fun of it. And he was the one who led this assassination to kill him. Because Caligula was making fun of him for being effeminate.
Wow!
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah!
Oh, the gender fuckery. It's all
the gender
over the place.
fuckery is everywhere.
Also, band name, I call it.
Yeah.